Thanks for having me.
Yes, yes. And so we are excited to hear more about your journey. But first, let me share with the audience. So Dr. Wallace is a phenomenal pediatric cardiologist. I got to know her during my time at Emory. She attended Georgetown University and then went to Morehouse School of Medicine. She completed her residency at Children's National Medical Center and then her fellowship in pediatric cardiology at Duke University. She then returned to Atlanta, Georgia, and now works on faculty at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta in Atlanta, Georgia. And her hobbies are traveling, hiking, and she loves to do Chicago step and Detroit ballroom. So everybody, welcome Dr. Wallace. We're so excited to have you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Where's your favorite place you've traveled to?
Ooh, well, I have to say my latest trip, that was to Tanzania. That's my favorite now.
Very nice. Very nice. We have to hear some more about that later. All right. Would you like to share the session objectives, Dr. Wallace?
Sure. So today we're going to learn a little bit about pediatric cardiology. We're going to talk a little bit about the basic anatomy of the heart and the heart rhythm. We're going to hear a little bit about why sports physicals matter. We're going to talk about a heart condition that can drastically affect athletes and think about the roadmap to success for pediatric cardiology. So let's get into it.
All right, let's get into it. So I don't know if you all are NBA fans, but how many of you remember in the news last year, there was a player that abruptly retired due to a heart condition? If you remember that, drop a yes in the chat. If you know who LaMarcus Aldridge is, or if you may remember hearing about that. Let's see. Yes. And so we're excited tonight because Dr. Wallace is going to talk a lot about the heart in general and something that really impacts athletes. And in this case, LaMarcus Aldridge was a player who had a irregular heartbeat and then actually was able to return to playing, but just had a very scary, abrupt situation. So we thought that would be important for you guys to hear about. So before we do that, we are going to hear more about Dr. Wallace and her journey. And so if you don't mind, could you share with us what is cardiology and what inspired you to go into the field of cardiology?
So cardiology is the study of the heart and the blood vessels attached to the heart or that receive blood from the heart. I guess what inspired me to go into the field was really my love of things that just make sense in medicine, right? And I remember taking pathophysiology and really enjoying the cardiac section when I was in my second year of medical school. And then when I got to the fourth year, of medical school, I spent some time on the adult side of things. And while I am an adult and I love adults, I really enjoyed working with kids because they bounce back. You know, you do surgeries on kiddos that are like 3-4 years of age or even younger, and a couple days later, they're ready to play again. So it's always sad when something, happens to a child's heart. But I love the fact that they're resilient and they recover in many cases and go on to live flourishing lives. So that's what really inspired me to go into pediatric cardiology. I love a few things married together.
That I love that, things that make sense. And definitely if physiology makes sense to you, it makes sense to you. So I love that. I love that. And so can you talk a bit about some of the challenges you may have faced along your journey?
Yeah. So I don't know about some of you, but I think my biggest challenge is that I am not the best test taker in all of the world. And so I really have to, if I'm going to take a large encompassing test, I have to sit down and take some time off and tune out the rest of the world and grab my syllabus and sit still with it, right? And go through everything line by line and make sure I have a good understanding of it. And I just remember trying to study for my MCATs while I was in college and thinking, yay, that's over. But it just didn't end, right? So then you got to medical school and you had to study for your USMLE steps in there. Then you had to take your boards after residency and had to take boards again after cardiology fellowship. So I was like, that was one of the biggest challenges, was just trying to pass it the first time as possible, which wasn't always the case. But the great news is that they got done. It's possible. And even if you aren't the best test taker, there are ways that you can center yourself, get it done, and still become an excellent physician.
Exactly. And I feel like that's a common thread, that like it's hard, it's a challenge, but it doesn't stop you from getting to that next step and becoming that amazing physician. So do you have any like tips for students who may be taking tests?
Yeah. So like I said, I'm a wholehearted believer in knowing, what's going to be on the test. So if you have a syllabus, pull it out and go through it with a fine tooth comb and ask yourself, what do I understand completely? What do I need to spend some additional time with? And then really finding an opportunity to block out the rest of the world and just sit with it. So I would find when I was in college, I would find a special place in the library, because I don't know about you, but I had roommates that everyone was on a different schedule and had, classes at different times of the day. So, times when I was trying to study, it would be loud in the house. And so I would have to find my special place in the library or the coffee shop or somewhere. And then, the other thing is, don't hesitate to reach out for tutoring help. I remember I used to be really shy about that, and, thinking that was a sign of weakness if I had to reach out to a tutor for help. But if you need it, if there's something that you're not grasping, then please, by all means, grab a tutor and get to studying with them and let them help guide you on the important things that you need to focus on.
Yes. Thank you for that. Definitely asking for help, guys. Just don't forget, ask for help. All right. So if you had to fast forward a little bit now into your current job, what are some of the joys of your job?
Yeah, well, so I love the fact that, similar to general pediatricians, I still have the opportunity to take care of patients from, well, actually a little bit even
probably older.
Older, but I can go even younger than most general pediatricians, right? So I see patients from, before they're born, when they're fetuses, all the way up until they turn 21. And especially managing kids that have congenital heart disease or heart problems that they are born with that require surgical procedures. I really get to take care of them through a large portion of their lives. And I have some patients now that, I might be showing my age and my gray hairs may start popping out a little bit more, but I have some patients now that I diagnosed prenatally that I'm taking care of that are like entering middle school. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that we've been through this journey since before you were born. So that's a lot of fun, and that's exciting when you see them come in and they're doing well.
Absolutely. Love that. And if you had to describe a few characteristics, what would you say makes a pediatric cardiologist successful?
Yeah, so I think, pediatric cardiology, similar to adult cardiology, has a lot to do with fluid dynamics, right? So if you like physics and fluid dynamics, this is a good place for you to be. But it also combines in embryology. So if you like embryology as well, and thinking about, what stages in the development of the heart that something could have gone wrong and led to the heart problem that you're seeing at this time, I think this is a good field for you. But there's really something in it for everyone. So that if you also like dealing with patients that have more acquired things, right? So we think about like high blood pressure and high cholesterol. I get to manage that. I see patients with chest pain and syncope. I get to manage that. So if you like dealing with acquired things, there's something here for you. I think really you just have to be dedicated to hard work, because there's a lot of stuff to learn in 4 years' time, right? When you're going through your fellowship phase. But if you're dedicated to hard work, willing to sit and study, and you have a love for physics and embryology, I think you'll do very well in this field.
Excellent. Those are some great traits.